Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this Teacher Training Academy webinar. How are you? Hello, hello. We can see, wow, this global audience. So without asking, you're already telling us there are people from Peru, Slovakia, Mexico, Guatemala, Ecuador. Good, welcome. Global audience, Honduras, Greece, Paraguay. Nice to see you all. Argentina. Good. Costa Rica. Uruguay. Welcome. Hello, hello. Nice to see you all here. Good. Okay, so before we start, we focus on this webinar. As you are already using it, feel free to use the chat, to use the questions and answers box. This webinar is for you. The time is for you. So feel free to do it. As we let everyone in, let me say that today we'll be focusing on developing listening skills. But before we move, so this 7th webinar is part of the Teacher Training Academy 2023. As you may already know, in March, we started all these webinars focusing on the computer-based test, Pearson English International Certificates. And as you can see, there are 2 strands. So the ones in yellow focus on the expert strands, and the ones in light blue focus on the masters. So basically, both of them talk about the computer-based test, but some of them focus on the academic topics or teacher training topics. There will be the experts, and the masters focus on the computer-based test, the different skills and strategies you can use to train your students. The good news is that whether you're taking one or the other one or both strands, you can get a Credly badge. Are you familiar with Credly badges? So you can earn these badges and post them on LinkedIn, on your emails. So we also have got a lot of materials for you can download. This is one thing you can download. It's the digital notebook. So you can scan it. You've got a QR code there. But if you visit the Teacher Training Academy website, you will also find the file there to download. You can find, well, the abstract for the session, and you have gotten a space there to write down your takeaway notes, and you've got some homework to go on reflecting and thinking about how you can help your students on this part. So today we'll be focusing on listening skills, on the listening tasks and the listening parts of the computer-based test, Pearson English International Certificates. And this is the agenda for today, right? So we're going to explore the 5 listening tasks of this exam, and we're going to share advice and strategies so that you can help your students get ready and feel confident when it comes to sit for this exam. At the same time, we're going to share ideas, class activities you can implement with your students, and you can adapt so that you have fun, they learn, and they feel confident to sit for the exam. We will start with this self-assessment activity I love, and I always share with some teachers. And you can also share this activity with your students, okay? You can adapt it. We're going to use a friend scale. We're not going to use numbers like 1 to 10. We're not going to use good or bad, those adjectives. But we're going to use gifts, and we're going to use Friends characters. Are you familiar with friends? Are you familiar with these characters? I hope you are. So this is the first question for you. On a friend scale, how confident do you feel about training your students for the listening parts when it comes to helping them be successful in listening tasks? How confident do you feel? Do you feel kind of desperate, worried, like Ross? Do you feel kind of, okay, hyper excited, but a little bit not that confident like Joey? That's fine. Okay. Like Rachel, we're fine. We're going. Monica, super confident, quite sure you're going to help them to be successful. Super excited, like Phoebe, or we are the best teachers who are going to train our students to be successful in the listening parts. So we've got some people say, Joey, Rachel, Phoebe, good, Monica. So we've got a heterogeneous audience, we can say, good. So Rachel, good. So we hope that by the end of the webinar, most of you feel like Chandler, okay? But to be honest, of course, you need to be honest, like Joey, many of you are saying. So this is a good activity to implement with your students, to analyze, to know, to find out how they feel when it comes to how confident they feel when it comes to this part or to any part. So let's start by focusing on the tasks, which are parts of the listening parts, okay? So as you can see, listening will be included in part 1, which focus on listening and speaking. And we will have 5 tasks, as you can see. You will have listen and repeat, listen to the conversation, passage comprehension, and in this case, the task will vary a little bit in lower levels and in higher levels. And we'll have listen and read, hotspots, and we'll have listen and then write, a dictation. Okay, but as you can see, although the main focus is listening, you may see here that not just listening is assessed. You know that the Pearson English International Certificate is a certification which aims at communication. And this is how it assesses students. So that means that on the tasks, more than one skill is sometimes involved. So we will see that speaking, reading, writing can be involved in each of the tasks. And this is what we see now straight away. So are you ready? Can we start? We'll start with the first one, okay? The first task for the listening parts is listen and repeat, okay? And so what is it that students have to do here? They have to listen to a sentence or short text, and then they have to repeat it, okay? So it will sound like this.
My hands are very cold today.
This activity is the same for all levels, as you can see, from A1 to C2. How will students be scored? So they will find 10 items, they will get partial credits, and listening comprehension is assessed at the words and at the sentence level. What does it mean? That it tests pronunciation, but also how fluent students are, and it also tests if the word hurts are understood, but at the same time are pronounced accurately. So what does it mean? That here we need to train students not just to be ready to listen, but also to speak and repeat exactly what they listen to. So they will be assessed not just on how fluent they are or a fluency pronunciation, but also content, what they repeat, okay? What strategies can we share with students? Well, this is very important. They need to avoid just repeating mechanically, okay? We need to teach them to be able to learn to listen, but focus on contents and repeating in a meaningful way. And that is to say, okay, understand what you are repeating, okay? Not just repeating by repeating, okay? At the same time, a good strategy would be focus on the content words and sentence meaning. What does it mean? That not just focusing on articles or pronouns, but content words will be easier to repeat the sentence structure. Of course, there is no need to copy the speaker's accent, and it's very important that they speak with normal volume at a natural pace when they are repeating the words. So we will start with the activities you can use in the classroom when training and preparing your students for the listening parts. And for this activity, the first task, listen and repeat. Sometimes this activity can be an example of usage, or it can be an example of drilling. But of course, we need to do so. And especially in lower levels, we can use several strategies to help our students. So we can implement scaffolding and adapt the tasks so that it's easier till we get to the dictation itself closer to the exam time. In that sense, you will see that I took several examples from Pearson courseware. You will see that this is an example from Goal Experience. And Goal Experience, for example, brings several quotations or phrases in the unit opener, like I love to hang out with my friends, right? So what is it you can do? You can take this example or any phrase or sentence from texts you're reading, from the course book you're using, and you can modify or ask your students to modify this sentence structure. I love adding gamification in these activities, which can be boring or drilling, okay? So you can play it in two teams. Teams can get different scores, and you can add the time thing, for example. So you can ask your students to create as many examples or sentences as possible by using this structure. So you can leave some gaps here, and they can add new sentences. For example, my sister loves to go out with her friends, and my best friend loves to have breakfast with her sister, or my dad loves to play with my brother, okay? So they can, as you can see, the pattern is quite repetitive, and what they can do is they can change the subjects or the verb or the object pronouns. And so what they do is they repeat a repetitive sentence, but of course they need to say the sentence is aloud, and the other team has to repeat it without reading, right? So if they get it right, they get a point. So for low levels, that could be easier, useful, and fun as well. A second activity has to do with a memory game and playing Pictionary. I'm sure most of you or all of you know Pictionary, but here, again, we can add these gamification elements to make the task more meaningful and let students have fun. So this is an example from Wider Worlds. It was a listening task, but you can take sentences from listening or reading tasks. So as you can see, there are several sentences. The capital of Brazil is Rio de Janeiro. The word for Mexican money is real. The Japanese flag is red with a white circle. Quite easy examples and sentences, okay? So again, you can play it in teams. And so, for example, one of the members or a team chooses one of the sentences, and they have to draw it. As they have already seen or read it during the reading task or the listening task, it would be easier for them. But of course, they would play with the books closed. So the idea is that they guess what they are drawing, okay? So they have to guess the exact sentence. So while a team says the sentence, the correct sentence, they have to, they get a point, and they have to repeat the sentence. So there, they will be training for listening and speaking. Okay, simple game, Pictionary, but using content from your book or from a text you are using. This is a game which is originally called Sentence at Time Story, but you can implement it. As you can see here, I used a higher level, high note 4, and it's called Words at a Time Story. What does it consist of? Well, as you can see in many course books, you've got a word list at the end with all the vocabulary you have taught during, or students have learned during the units, okay? So again, here, you can play in circles, in teams, just by using this vocabulary, these words students have learned during the units. And the game goes like this. A student will start by saying a word, okay? Like, for example, well, any or subject, okay? So the girl, so the person, the student next to that student has to repeat that word and add a different one. But they need to create sentences which make sense, okay? Not isolated words like assume, assumption, girl, okay? So a girl, so a girl who, and they need to repeat. And as you are adding words, you will see it's more challenging because you need to remember a girl who is sitting, a girl who is sitting on a park bench. So a girl who is sitting on a park bench is, and so they go on adding. So you end up creating, making up sentences or stories, but using vocabulary from the unit, which can be challenging, and repeating. So they are listening to the word, repeating, but more at a word level. So here you will see scaffolding as well. So they won't hear a complete sentence or text, but rather words which make sense. Okay. So we are we have another activity here, the telephone game or Chinese whisper. I guess most teachers in this webinar might know this one as well. So here I selected a course book, an adult's course book, which is Roadmap. And so you can use many different texts or, yes, reading text or phrases you can find throughout the course book. And here your students might choose what they want to say. Do you know how to play Chinese whisper? So your students get in rows or in circles, and it can be the teacher, the one who provides the sentence or text, or the students who selects. And so they have to whisper that sentence to the student next to them. Okay, so for example, this one, I am training as a tour guide here in Rome. I want to get a qualification in tourism. Okay, so they need to go on repeating, but whispering. Okay, that is the idea. So memory game, but at the same time, they will be listening and repeating with the aim of getting a point, because the last person in the circle or on the row has to repeat and say that sentence loud, checking whether it is the same, sorry, as it was written there on the text. So in this case, you will see you got the game element as well, and they will be listening and repeating, but as they are playing the game, they won't realize it's a mechanical action, and rather they will be focused on just getting the correct sentence at the end. This is quite fun because they can role play or repeat, but we bring here their interests, students' interests. If I ask you, what about your students' idols? Who do they admire? Singers or sportswomen, we mean sportsmen, I brought several examples, but of course it will depend on your student's age. So Selena Gomez, that could be one, right? If they are younger. So I brought some examples here. So they might mention footballers, football players like Claudia is saying, Leo Messi here, or Miley Cyrus, or probably most popular for older people like me, Shakira, right? So what they can do is they can select any phrase or sentence from the student's book, or they can make up, right? They can write phrases these famous people may have said, okay? But they have to imitate, role play as one of their idols. You know, they've got like very different personalities, so it will be fun to imitate and talk, for example, let's imagine like Leo Messi, okay? And so their classmates have to repeat that sentence, and if this sentence is accurate, that is to say, it's a complete sentence or even a short text. My favorite thing is my car is blue and it isn't very big, but I love it. Imagine it's that one. So they have to repeat the sentence. If the sentence is accurate, they get 1 point. But if they guess who they are imitating, who they are role playing, they get an extra point, okay? So imagine I say my camera. It's my father's camera, but I have it in my apartment. And I talk like Leo Messi or like Shakira or like Miley Cyrus. So if the rest of the other team repeats the sentence and they get it right, they get a point. But if they guess that imitating Miley Cyrus, they will get an extra point, okay? Cristiano Ronaldo, they say, okay, so we get different titles, right? So again, another instance of listening and repeating, but we've got here the fun element, which is role-playing, imitating their idols. Okay, so we got to the second task, which is listen to the conversation, okay? The first one was listen and repeat. In the second task, what students have to do is they have to listen to a conversation between two people and then answer a question about the conversation.
Hello, do you sell envelopes? I need to post this letter.
We do, yes. Do you need any stamps as well?
Thanks, but I've already got one.
Okay.
What does the woman want to buy?
That is the question they need to answer about that short text, short conversation, in fact. So they will get 6 items and they will get correct or incorrect. And as you can see here, the task assesses understanding of the meaning, the context and detail of the scripts, because students might be asked for the gist or for specific details. So as they have to answer the question, of course, they will be assessed on listening, but also on speaking what they say. How can we train? Which strategies can we share with students? Well, first of all, as we have said, they will have to understand the context, so they will have to pay attention to the gist, what happens in the conversation, but at the same time to specific details as well, okay? Because in that case, what does the woman want to buy? And it was an envelope, so it's very specific. So we can tell them to focus on the conversation, and apart from listening to specific words and the content, think about that. Where is it taking place? What is happening? What is the relationship between the two speakers? What about their attitudes, their moods, okay? And this is very important. What they say, what the test taker answers should be short, okay? They don't need to provide a complete long sentence, but straight to the answer, one or just a few words, okay? And this is very personal. You know, students are allowed to have a notebook and write down information or what they need. It can be useful, but it's not necessary. You will see that the conversations are short, and probably if they start writing some key words or content words, they might get lost, okay? So tell them they will need to find what's best for them, okay, and what's most useful for them when it comes to listening and answering to the question in this task. So we've got some activities here to train and to practice for this task. Listen to the conversation. You know that many of the Pearson series bring a lot of videos, okay? And I believe that for this task, the videos which are very useful are the drama videos. You know, we've got kind of sitcoms or soap operas, in this case, in Wider World, where there are several characters who are the same age as your students, okay? So as you can see, they've got the video, and the good thing is that although this is number 4, for most videos, you've got the video scripts, okay? So this is a useful strategy for scaffolding to provide support at the beginning. And as you can see, all the videos bring activities. So in this case, they've got questions. So the task would be exactly the same as what students have to do in the Pearson English International Certificates. So here I brought several scaffolding ideas to help your students, especially at the beginning of the year. First of all, if it's very difficult for them to provide oral answers, to answer orally, they can write their answers, okay? So they can think at the beginning, write their answers, and then read them aloud. There's no need to provide just oral answers straight from the beginning, okay? But at the same time, a very useful, especially for students who find listening tasks quite challenging, is to vary group dynamics. So you can implement pair work, group work, and letting them discuss or just agree on the best answer, okay? That will lower their anxiety as well. You can use visible thinking techniques. In fact, Wider World Second Edition brings a lot of activities like this one. Think, pair, share. So they think about the answer, then they discuss with a partner, and then they share with the whole group. And you can vary, again, if it's too difficult for them to provide open answers, what you can do is you can provide the answers at the beginning, and so they just match the answers to the questions, and then you can provide the answers and students can write or just decide which is the most suitable question to that answer. And then little by little, you get to the students providing the answer to that question in the oral form. I mean, you will get to that time where they train for the task. So they listen to the conversation and they answer. But at the beginning, if they find it's too difficult, you can use these scaffolding strategies. Again, gamification. So we've got an exam preparation course book like Goal Experience, right? And so here, for example, we've got an activity, a listening task, which is listen to 8 people talking in different situations, okay? So they have 8 conversations and they've got different answers. So, for example, you hear a girl talking about her family's move to the country. How does she feel about it? Annoyed, surprised, or glad, okay? So, again, here, what can you do? Do you use ball games in the classroom? I love playing with balls with my students, especially with adults. They feel weird at the beginning, like, what are we going to do? But then they end up loving playing games because it's different. It sounds like a game, but in fact, you are doing an activity. So you can vary the dynamics. For example, you can just throw the ball to the different students and they will need to answer the question, okay? They provide the answer, but you're adding this game element. This is a different alternative. Pass the ball is an activity where you play some music, you close your eyes as a teacher, and when the music stops, the student who gets the ball, who has the ball, has to provide the answer. Okay, so again, you are doing, and you can add extra questions, okay? So how does she feel and where is she? Or you can add and go on asking extra questions for that conversation. Okay, so welcome to the ones who are joining now. So we have already seen the first two tasks, okay? Listen and repeat, and listen to the conversation and answer. Now we're getting to task number 3. Remember, we will have 5 tasks for the listening part on the computer-based tests. And in this third task, passage comprehension, what students have to do is they have to listen to a short passage, and then in the first levels, in levels A1 and A2, they need to choose the best image to answer the 3 questions, okay? In the other one, in the rest of the levels, as from B1 onwards, the task will be different, okay? But let me share this example.
I'd like an orange juice with ice, please. To start, I think I'll have a sandwich with egg. No, wait. I'll have a cheese one with tomato. After, I'd like some fresh fruit and ice cream.
So here they will listen later to this question and they need to choose the correct picture.
What is the man doing?
Okay, so for levels A1 and A2, they need to choose the correct picture. In this case, as from B1 onwards, they need to listen to the passage, but then answer 3 questions orally. Okay?
Pauline went to the theater with her sister to see a musical called Bright Lights. In the interval, they went to buy ice cream, and while they were standing in the queue, they heard someone say, "Hello, Pauline." It was an old school friend who Pauline hadn't seen for a very long time. Pauline was very happy to see her.
Okay, so then what they need to do is answer.
Who went to the
questions.
theatre with Pauline?
So, as you can see, first 2 levels, they've got 3 pictures to choose from. Then, as from B1 onwards, they will need to answer questions, okay? So they will find 6 items, getting partial credits, and of course, here they will be assessed on understanding the meaning, the context, but at the same time, the detail of the script. And here they will just be assessed on listening. How can we help students? Which strategies can we share with them? Again, same as the previous one. We need to tell them to pay attention to the gist, but at the same time to specific details, as you have seen just now. Who did Pauline went to the cinema with? So they might be asked for very specific names and details, okay? In the first 2 levels, of course, they've got this scaffolding and this advantage, which is they've got the pictures, so it's easier to guess topic of the passage. They can anticipate to what they will be listening to. And of course, they can mentally brainstorm some ideas, some vocabulary, which might appear in the passage, okay? And it's easier or it's good to train them to focus on question words. What, when, how, to start thinking about the answers to these questions, because it might be one of the questions being asked, okay? For higher levels, of course, taking into account speakers' attitudes, their moods, feelings, relationships can be also very useful. And in this case, again, as from B1 onwards, it's ideal that students provide short answers, okay? 1 or a few words, but they don't need to provide a full sentence. So, an idea, an activity for students to train for this passage comprehension. They can use graphic organizers that we generally use for reading texts, but for listening tasks, okay? Working with these keywords, W words, what, who, where, when, how. So although the question might just aim at, okay, what is the man going to ask for dinner? But You can also work with where is the man and who is he with. And so try to answer other questions which might not appear, or they might find the answers in the passage, but training them to find the answers to these key question words. For higher levels, for students with higher level of English, you can use podcasts, TED Talks, videos. So, you know, there is a lot of material, both in Pearson course books and on the internet. You might know this lovely TED Talk, and they might be short, not that long. This is almost 8 minutes long. So this can be an activity which students can do as homework. Okay, so you don't need to watch the TED Talks or listen to the podcasts in class, but it can be an activity you do once a month, for example. So you can provide like a repository of TED Talks or podcasts or videos, and as homework, students will need to select a podcast or a TED Talk they are interested in. So what they do is they listen to the podcast, watch the video, and they take their notes, okay? They will need to present a summary, highlighting like the key points, like selling the video or the TED Talk, and inviting the rest of the class to watch it or to listen to the podcast. So it would be like a podcast or TED Talk reviewers, okay? So this is the podcast I watched or I listened to, or the TED Talk I watched this month, and this is why I recommend it, okay? So they might learn about different topics, and you know, you've got different accents, you've got people with a native English, but from different countries, or non-native English as well. So it can be very useful to tune the ear to different accents. Okay, so here they would be aiming at understanding this passage or this TED Talk. Another activity you can do in class, especially again with higher levels, is you can use these videos or audios which appear throughout the units. For example, Roadmap brings BBC videos, and you can ask students to work in pairs, right? So one of them can listen to the first parts of the video or the audio, and the other one will watch the video as from minutes 3 onwards, okay? So again, they prepare a summary or the key points, then they get together, and together they're supposed to understand what the video or the audio is about, okay? It's an information gap activity. So then they present it to the class, and it can be the same video for all the class, so agreeing on what the video is about, or can be different videos, and you can organize kind of gallery walk, okay, for them to learn about different videos or TED Talks. Okay, so we're getting to task number 4. In this case, students will need to listen and read the text and identify the words which are different. Okay, so they need to find the differences between what they hear and what is written here. What they will find is some of the words are highlighted, so they need to click on the words which are different. Okay, so they will listen to a text like this and pay attention that the text is different from what is written here.
Sam is a young man. He lives in a small house in a big city. Every day he goes to work by bus. He works in a restaurant. In the evening, he likes to play football in the garden with his friends.
So, as you can see, there were many words which were different. They will have 2 items. They will be assessed. They will get partial credits. And here, students will be assessed on the ability to recognize, spot individual words. So, in this case, they will be assessed on listening and reading as well. What strategies can we share with students? Well, here again, we have the advantage that we've got the text. So ask them to read the text very quickly, to skim it before the audio starts. And then to predict which words might be different. There we had hotel, but he worked in a restaurant. Instead of playing in the park, he played on the garden. So which synonyms or which words can be replaced? Of course, he won't play, I don't know, in the bank, okay? So thinking of words which can be replaced in that part of the sentence. And of course, the words which might generally be different are the content words. So what you can tell, okay, focus on the content words, do not focus on the articles or prepositions, right? A good strategy is to let them know they need to focus on the incorrect words as they listen to the text, not later, because you might forget. So as they are listening, they need to click on the different words. And they don't have to click on the words if they're not sure they are incorrect, because this activity has got negative marking, okay? So here again, we've got a great advantage is that many course books bring not just audios, but also videos with scripts. So you can use this material you've got and you can adapt it. How is it? For example, you can edit the script by changing some words, okay? So here, instead of saying, for example, today I'm visiting a new tourist attraction, aiming to reverse that trend by using technology to bring people back together. So instead of today I'm visiting a new tourist attraction, I visit a new tourist spot, for example, aiming to reverse that instead of trend issue, okay, this is a high level, okay, so it will be more challenging, but you can change some words, okay, and you can ask students to listen with different purposes. And the good thing about videos, of course, they've got the image as a scaffolding technique, but also you can use closed captions to help students who might have difficulties, okay. But at the same time, you can ask your students to write or to edit the scripts, okay? You can encourage, foster creativity. You know, they love being teachers and changing the scripts or preparing exercises and activities for the classmates. So they can create their own modified versions of the video scripts, okay? So they can modify the same scripts, but they will probably modify different words. And it will be easier for them because they have already read the text. So this is good to help students at the beginning, instead of just offering an audio and a text they have never read. If they have prepared the scripts for their classmates, it will be easier. So they watch the video, it can be without the closed caption as a listening activity, but they have the image as a support, and then they will need to check their answers with closed captions, okay? Or then they can read the original scripts, okay? So they love writing or modifying, okay? So we're getting to the end, the last activity of the listening part, okay? Listen and then write. And this is the dictation. So here, what students need to do is to listen to a sentence, or it can be a short text, and they can write what they have heard.
I cannot find my glasses.
This is what they have to write. It's present in all levels from A1 to C1. They will have 4 items. They will get partial credits. And here, listening comprehension is assessed at the words, but also at the sentence level. So it will test the ability to write accurately and understand sentence structure, word order, and connectors as well. So here, students will be assessed on listening, but also writing. Which strategies can we share for this last task they've got from the listening parts? If they're not fast at typing, they can use short words or abbreviations and symbols. but then they need to make sure they write the complete. For example, instead of adding more, they can use the plus symbol. Instead of importance, they can write imp, if they're not fast, okay? But they need to remember to complete, because of course, they wouldn't be accepted abbreviations or symbols, okay? If they don't get the exact words, we should encourage them to go on listening and writing, okay? Telling them to not get stuck. If you don't get or start thinking, okay, what was that word? Go on listening and writing, okay? But of course, they need to be able to type as much as possible accurately. And then this is the key strategy. After they finish once they finish listening to the recording, which will be placed just once, reading, okay, proofreading what they have written. Why is that? Because they will get a grammatically correct sentence, okay? So if you read something and it doesn't make sense, okay, change it so that it makes sense, okay? So the verb needs to be correct. There needs to be a subject, an object probably, okay? So they can edit that sentence until it makes sense for them, okay? Which activities can we use to train students for this dictation, which is intimidating sometimes, right? Well, again, tiniest whisper, the one that we have mentioned for listen and repeat. But here, again, I have selected an activity from Speak Out A2, low level. So this is the section on the book which works on or focuses on functional language. And here they will have different phrases or sentences, which is part of a dialogue, right? So they can choose a sentence from this dialogue or from a text, and they can whisper the sentence to each other. But instead of saying the sentence aloud, they have to write it, okay? So it will work as a dictation, but again, you will have this fun element, okay? Because they need to remember the sentence and they need to listen to their classmates and check if it's correct. And this is a very interesting. Have you ever used Dictogloss with your students to practice or to train your students for dictations? Well, Dictogloss works like this. It's a scaffolding technique before you focus on dictations, which can be, as we have said, challenging or intimidating because they need to pay attention to the exact words and at the same time write accurately the words and the sentences you have dictated. So you can use the text they have already read or you have already worked on, or it can be an easy or short text with a repetitive pattern, okay? To start training your students. Beforehand, you can even introduce the topic, brainstorm vocabulary, ideas, so you activate this schematic knowledge. And then the teacher will read the text aloud. Then you can ask students to read the text to practice again speaking. And students will just take down notes, okay? It's not a dictation in this instance. They take their notes, keywords, key information, and when you finish reading the text, they will need to get together with a partner, with a classmate, and compare their notes they have taken. Then you will read the text again for the second time, and students will listen again, and you will ask students to reconstruct the text in groups. So they will need to rewrite the text together. And of course, if they are younger or if they are low-level students, you can provide or keywords or the beginning of the sentences on the boards, okay? So I don't know if you were familiar with Dictogloss, but it's a good idea before you start implementing dictations, right? So, and this is very fun and this is great, but of course it's more challenging than Dictogloss. Have you ever used running race dictations in the classroom? So for running race dictations, you will need to prepare beforehand. So you will need to select a text and write on slips of papers different phrases, okay? Make sure that the different slips of paper have got the numbers like this one, okay? The time limited activities in which students work in pairs to accurately reproduce a text. So you create the different slips of papers and you stick them different parts in the classroom, on the walls, on the floor, on the chair, on the table, okay? So students will work in pairs. One will be the runner and the other will be the one sitting down and writing the dictation, okay? So the one who is the runner will be running and looking for the numbers. So they have to look for number 1, read the sentence or phrase and remember. So that student will come back to the student sitting down and will dictate the sentence. So the sitter will need to write down the sentence his or her classmate has just dictated. So what student runs, remembers the phrase and dictates it to the one sitting down who writes the phrase. And then when time's up, because it can be a time-bound activity, you will check whether the sentences and the text is correct. Of course, they can be longer or shorter sentences. You decide the level and the level of complexity, I mean, how complex they are. And again, or you can, at the beginning, work with just phrases or words, for example, but then they will swap roles, okay? So all the students will be running, remembering, and dictating, speaking the sentences, and all of them will be writing down the phrases being dictated, okay? So it's fun. Of course, you will need some space, but if not, they can work. For example, you can modify the dynamics if you've got a smaller classroom. So we're getting to the end. Before we wrap up, what was your favorite activity or strategy? Yes, the slips paper can be without numbers, but that is more challenging, right? Especially if it's a text which makes sense, because then they will decide, that could be an extra challenge, okay? Because then they will need to decide which sentence comes first. So for the text to be coherent, yes, that could be an idea for, especially for students in high levels, okay? So just write down the phrase and then decide how to organize the different phrases or sentences so that the text makes sense. Dictogloss, some of them, the telephone, running race, good. Chinese whisper, Pictionary, the rules, good. So before we finish, some ideas, some strategies as a wrap up so that we as teachers get ready to train students for the listening parts and students get ready for exams of success, right? It's very important that we know the tasks as teachers, okay? That we know what will be assessed on that task, the time, whether the recording is repeated once, twice, whether they have to answer orally or just select pictures, okay? So it's very important that we are familiar as teachers and that our students are familiar as well, okay? So that we can design these strategies for exam success. At the same time, we always say that we don't recommend you assign mock tests, practice tests from the beginning of the year. There is no need. As you have seen, ideally, we need to start training our students for each of the exam parts, for each of the tasks, without our students even noticing they are training for the exam. So we can break down the tests, we can build the habits, but we also need to make sure we plan our training periods. When are we going to train our students for the exam? How often? Or is it on Fridays? Or is it once a week, twice a week? And when will the training period start? In March, in August. So you need to plan your training period so that you can implement these daily or weekly routines. And so probably you can start assigning mock exams, complete mock exams. Of course, it's important. They have the opportunity to complete a full mock exam, but probably some months before the dates, the exam dates, okay? But you can, as we have seen, you can break down the test and you can adapt the different course book tasks so that they resemble the exam tasks. We say the Pearson English International Certificate aims at communication. So your students will find integrated skills tasks. So they will not just be assessed on listening or reading or speaking, writing. So they will have integrated skills tasks. So we need to train our students to listen for different purposes, for the gist, for specific details, and also where several skills are integrated. And remember, there is no need to have specific exam preparation material, okay? Any Pearson courseware that you are using can be suitable for test preparation, and we can be creative, okay? Adapting the different tasks, as we have seen, using video scripts, using the listening, or adding these game elements, or playing competition with our students, okay? So, as we're getting to the end, to those of you, how confident do you feel now we have explored the 5 listening tasks? We have shared strategies. We have shared different activities you can do or you can implement in class with your students. I can read there are many Phoebes, Monica's there. Wow, there is even a Chandler. Good. There. Good. So you can even implement this activity with your students so that they are aware, they take responsibility for their learning. And so how do you feel when it comes to the listening part, to the speaking part, to the reading part? How confident do you feel? And after you start training and you start working, aiming at exam success, how they feel? Good. So before we finish, are there any questions? There are even lots of Chandlers there. So before we finish, I would like to give you this present to you. You can scan this QR code where you will get a lot of lesson plan ideas. We do recommend, because there you will got different PDF files, in fact, for the 4 skills: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. In the case of listening, you will get PDF files for every single task, okay? And you will get the description of the tasks, you will get exam strategies, activities, and even practice tasks with audios, okay? So everything can be found on the Teacher Training Academy website. So if you don't have the hyperlink, you can Google that and you will find it very quickly. But if not, you just scan these QR codes and you download these PDF files to train for the listening part. But we would recommend you go on exploring for the other skills as well. Okay, so before we end this webinar, remember there are still 3 webinars from this Teacher Training Academy. So the following one is dealing with stress. We know that exam time is very challenging for students. It can be a really stressful moment for them. So it's on October the 26th, same time, 8 a.m., 4 p.m. UK time, so you can register. And you can even check out the other 2 webinars there on the Teacher Training Academy website. So thank you very much for your active participation. Thank you to all of you who have joined from different parts of the world. So hope to see you in the following webinars, and all the best with your students, okay?